All right, this is a big one. We may actually be closer to profit sharing and collective bargaining with student athletes than you even thought, based on a new lawsuit that occurs because the NCAA barked up the wrong tree again. Welcome into the channel. I am John Kurtz. Here on this channel, we talk college football, college basketball, conference realignment, all through generally a Big 12 lens out here in Big 12 country. Please consider subscribing if you have not. Live shows Wednesdays and Sunday nights. They're a blast. We get a ton of people in there, and it is a great, great time if you are a college sports fan. So please do subscribe. Click the bell so you know when it is I'm going live. Like the video. All that really helps. Leave me a comment as well. Agree, disagree, love me, hate me, and John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo if you want to support the channel there. If you've been paying attention, we've seen a couple of these cases from the NCAA trying to come down in the NIL world against certain schools, Florida State being one. Now we have Tennessee, and it's about Tennessee's five-star football recruit, good old Nico. I will botch the last name, but if you're a college football fan, you know who I'm talking about with Nico, the number one quarterback recruit in the country, headed to Tennessee. The NCAA arbitrarily trying to crack down now on these random cases when everybody is using NIL the same way, because they do still have some kind of very loose rule about it not being a total inducement. You can't directly talk compensation to the player. It's supposed to be done through the collectives, all that. They're trying to come down on Tennessee for that, and that was the wrong move because Tennessee is firing back with a lawsuit now, and if you have paid any level of attention to what is going on with the NCAA in court lately, you know it is a slaughter, a complete slaughter. The NCAA is losing at every single turn. So if Tennessee's attorney general is able to get the right outcome on this story, you will see all of a sudden the laws applying across the board to everybody going away. The NCAA bylaws on any of the stuff with NIL, it will open it up to everybody can just negotiate directly with the player, which obviously pushes us even closer to where we're probably ultimately headed. I'm going to read to you a little bit from a story from On3 and Andy Staples, who does a good job outlining what's happening with some commentary as well. I think it will give some good perspective here. So he says, this feels like the big one. And it's not just about Tennessee. It's also about your favorite school. Wednesday's lawsuit against the NCAA, brought by the attorneys general from Tennessee and Virginia in federal court in Knoxville, feels far more direct. It asked the court to declare the NCAA's ban of discussion of NIL payments with recruits to be an illegal restraint of trade. Since NIL payments were allowed, collectives, schools, recruits have twisted themselves in semantic knots to pretend they aren't engaging in the same kind of negotiations everyone in this country uses when deciding how much compensation a person will receive for doing a job or providing a particular service. A temporary restraining order or an injunction in this case would pierce that veil. It would remove much, but not all of the pretense, because it would acknowledge how the world actually works. Yes, schools through collectives are paying players for their value as athletes and not for their endorsement potential. Yes, athletes want to know how much money they're going to make before they decide where to play. They don't always choose the highest bidder, but just like any other decision to take a deal in exchange for compensation, they want all the information. Now, players are basically figuring this out now anyway. This is the ridiculousness of all of it, choosing one random school to go after and all of this, because everybody is doing it this way. It's talked about. They just try to find random ways to skirt around the technical rules here, but the kids should be able to get all the information. It is pretty ridiculous. Staples says this day was coming the moment the Supreme Court ruled 9-0 in the Alston versus NCAA case in 2021. Guess who was on the business end of that shutout? The majority in opinion in the case made clear that any more NCAA price fixing rules would be in extreme danger of being declared illegal. Quote, the NCAA is thumbing its nose at the law, the attorneys general wrote in their complaint filed Wednesday morning. We're back now to the current lawsuit. The NCAA is thumbing its nose at the law. After allowing NIL licensing to emerge nationwide, the NCAA is trying to stop that market from functioning. This month, it announced new proposals related to student-athlete protections in NIL. These protections allow current athletes to pursue NIL compensation, but it bans prospective athletes from discussing potential NIL opportunities before they actually enroll. It's like a coach looking for a new job and freely talking to many different schools, but being unable to negotiate salary until after he's picked one. It's exactly what it's like. Trying to negotiate a job, find a job without being able to negotiate the salary. And we all know that's information you would use as to whether or not to take the job. This case came Wednesday because the NCAA decided to target Tennessee's quarterback. That pushed Tennessee's AG Jonathan Scrimetti. The push Tennessee AG Jonathan Scrimetti needed, was the danger that the Volunteers or Spire Sports Collective or QB Nico, Iamaleava, sorry if I'm botching that, might be harmed by the NCAA. There's no more politically savvy move in the volunteer state than to protect the Big Orange, and Tennessee needs protection in this particular case because it used the NCAA's enforcement division as a weapon to get out of paying failing coach Jeremy Pruitt his buyout. So, yeah, in order to not pay the buyout, they blame Jeremy Pruitt for some NCAA violations, meaning they would be a repeat offender here if they were to be found guilty by the NCAA in this. So if the NCAA determined the contract between the quarterback and Spire was a recruiting inducement, or if it violated whatever rules the NCAA has decided matter this week. But this case isn't just about Tennessee. That's why Virginia's attorney general joined the fray. That's why others may jump on board the way they did when West Virginia challenged the NCAA's transfer rules in court last month. Of course, if you're not up to speed on that, multi-time transfers, a bunch of them the NCAA had ruled were actually ineligible this year, highlighted by Raekwon Battle at West Virginia. So that was challenged in court, and the NCAA lost. And players that were multi-time transfers were then immediately eligible to play in the middle of the season. The reason this matters for everyone and why trying to enforce these rules was so short-sighted on the part of the NCAA is that while this quarterback's contract was one of the first of its kind, it's been copied many times over at every major football and basketball school in the country. Why NCAA leaders assume the schools would simply accept that possibility, that they would be punished, right, is mystifying. That wave of enforcement includes other cases that haven't surfaced yet in the news. Every school is at risk, so of course the schools are going to act to nullify the risk as soon as possible. They've chosen something close to a nuclear option. If the AGs get their injunction, will schools continue to use collectives to pay recruits to come play for them? Yes, they will, and they may change the rules so they don't need the collectives at all. The system won't completely embrace common sense, but it will inch closer. Yeah, because common sense would, again, be acknowledging these are employees, being able to collectively bargain, revenue sharing, whether you like or don't like where that's actually going, where the sport is going, if that's what we end up at. That's the only thing that really makes sense. They truly are at this point, with it being a multi-million dollar industry and all the money that's being made by all these different places. Yeah, they're employees. You should negotiate with them. That's how all of this should go down. We wouldn't quite get there with all this, but we certainly take a step closer to that. It's also possible the National Labor Relations Board or the courts may force the schools to treat athletes as employees. This would allow for collective bargaining that would allow the schools to make rules regarding compensation, transfers, or anything else that can't be challenged on antitrust grounds. That day is probably coming, just as this day always was. The NCAA just hastened the process by targeting a school that was finally pumped about its 5-star QB. That's really it, man. Stuff is happening fast, and it feels like we're getting pushed closer and closer to some of these like bigger picture places that seem inevitable now, right? We're getting closer and closer to that virtually every day with things like this that keep happening. The NCAA continuing to lose court cases and conference realignment, the churn of conference realignment going on. Florida State trying to leave the ACC. More on all that stuff here on the channel, by the way, if you want to learn about that. And going after John Swofford, the former ACC commissioner, as a way to try and get out of the grant of rights. There is a lot happening, totally unprecedented time in college athletics. But the one thing we know, the NCAA is taking it on the chin, and the more they try and do BS like this, the worse it's going to get, and the quicker they will just be gone, and the entire collegiate model is going to change on its head. And we are headed there, it feels like, very, very quickly right now. If you want more of this, if you want to hang out on the live shows Wednesdays and Sundays, which are a blast with a ton of college sports fans, you should definitely check it out. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, click that bell so you get alerts when it is that I'm going live. Make sure and be a part of that. It is great. Like the video. Leave me a comment. What do you think of all this? Where college sports is headed? All that stuff is great. Helps me with the YouTube algorithm. I much appreciate it. And Kurtz-4 again on Venmo if you want to support the channel there. Take care. I will talk to you soon.